I can't believe I'm still doing that. It's the pollinator, otherwise known as Ray Gibson. Good morning. Trying to see what date it is. Anyway, I promised my, I don't know if I'll say my #1 fan, but the lady who gets to talking about reruns when it's been a while since I've made a vlog on my channel. But anyway, I told her I would make this particular video, and the title of this one, well, I'll figure out what the title is when I upload it. But it's about the time that I married a woman. It was back in, I think, 1999. I think. Yeah. Was either, yeah, I think it was 1999. Anyway, I was living in the South for the first time. I had gotten a contract in Texas, and I met this woman online. I don't exactly remember which site it was, because there was a lot of different things going on back then. But so I met her online, and I talked a while with her, and then I went to the city that she was in Texas, and I met her. I had gone on, excuse me, I'd gone on a shopping spree at Nordstrom it was like a one-shot deal where I used some of the money from my mother's estate, well, from her house, and my sister and I split what was left over after we had to pay all her bills. Anyway, so I used that money. I went on a shopping spree up there, and I met this lady who went to that store with me. And because I was spending so much money, I'm not even going to tell you the disgusting amount of money I spent that weekend. But she was in the dressing room, and I think I had every sales lady at that store in that dressing room bringing me clothes. And she sat there observing. I don't know exactly what she was thinking because I did not ask, but you know, it was a big turn on for her. I was making a lot of money. I was making 6 figures at the time, but that was an added bonus. I never had that much money at one time in my hands before. So we began to date, and at some point, at some point, I think when I got a contract in Atlanta, I proposed to her. It could have been in Texas, but it may have been Atlanta. I don't exactly remember. This story is going to be in my book, and I'm going to actually backtrack and try to find some of the date markers of events that have happened in my life. At any rate, I proposed to her, and she said yes. And I was still kind of moving around the country, and I ended up in the Midwest. And when I ended up in the Midwest, she went back to Chicago, which is not where I was. So she was in Chicago. I was in another state in the Midwest. And I made a mistake, and I'm not going to talk about that mistake. It'll be in my book. It'll be in my autobiography. But I made a mistake, and I was good. To make up for that mistake. What I told her was, instead of cussing me out for a week, either dump me, or what was the or? Well, or forgive me. But I wasn't going to be cussed out for the rest of my life because of that mistake. But then I said this. I said, but if you're going to dump me, do it in my face. Don't do it over the phone. Don't do it through emails. Come where I am, and let's put closure on this face to face. So she said, okay. So I flew her to where I was, and picked her up from the airport and went back to my place, and I said, okay, now, what do you want to do? Because if you forgive me, I don't want to hear another thing about it. And if you can't, that's okay too. We'll just call it a day. And she said, okay, well, okay, I forgive you, and we don't have to talk about it anymore. And I said, okay. I said, I tell you what, just to show you that I'm sincerely sorry for what I did, let's take a vacation, a trip to Hawaii. And she said, oh, of course. Her face lit up. Of course, she said yes. And so I said, okay, cool. And we had a great weekend, and then I put her back on the plane. She went back to Chicago. So I began making preparations for this vacation. You know, finding a hotel, booking the flight, arranging the dates, whatnot. And she called me up one day and she said, well, while we're there, why don't we get married? I went stone quiet on the phone. I didn't say. In fact, I probably started stuttering. Because up to that point in time, you know, to me, engagements are a trial run for what marriage is going to be like with that individual. And up to that point in time, I did not think we had a solid enough, a stable enough, a healthy enough foundation to actually go ahead and tie the knot. And you'll have to remember, back in those days, it wasn't even legal for, you know, I wasn't even close to even transitioning and didn't even know what that was at the time. So, you know, according to the laws in the United States, it was a same-sex marriage. So I was stuttering, and she just sat there and let me sweat to find out what my answer was going to be. And that had to have gone on. It probably seemed like 30 minutes to me, but it was probably more like 15 minutes where I was just stuttering and saying, well, but. And I finally said, okay, let's do it. And so I had to completely change everything, because I found some wedding planners in Hawaii, on Oahu, which is where we were going. I found some wedding planners to arrange a wedding, and she was very excited. I mean, over the top excited. Me, I was like, I don't know, I kicked into another gear, but inside, I think I was apprehensive at best, wondering why I said yes. was it? Now, after the fact, it was guilt that made me say that, to make me agree with this wedding. It couldn't have been anything other than that, because it wasn't that I was so madly in love with this lady and thought that we were 100% compatible to marry. So anyway, I made all of the arrangements. I paid for everything. Limo. We were going to be married in a church on Oahu. I booked our honeymoon suite, which we were going to stay in for the weekend and then go to a different hotel for a week after that on the same island. So the honeymoon suite was a 5-star hotel. The second hotel was more like a 4-star hotel, but they were both still very, very nice. Anyway, so all of this was happening, and she was getting more and more excited. I think I was getting more and more nervous. I don't really know exactly what I was feeling, but what I was feeling showed up before we left, which was about 3 or 4 days before our departure. Now, we were supposed to get a flight, go to Los Angeles, transfer in Los Angeles, and go on to Oahu. And when we got to Oahu, we were to be picked up by a limo and taken straight to the church, where we would have had to get dressed there. And my cousin Michelle, the lady who passed away in 2016, let my then fiance borrow her wedding dress. And I was just going to wear a white suit. I don't know why I didn't want to rent a tux, probably because that wasn't really feasible to rent a tux where we were and then go all the way to Hawaii for a week and a half and have to pay for that tux. You know, typically you rent them, and then after the event you have to take them back. So exactly where was that going to happen in between you know, where we departed and landing in Oahu? There just wasn't time for that. So I wore a white suit. So 3 days before we were to depart, I got violently ill. I mean, I got so sick. My stomach was so sick that I ended up in the hospital because I could not stop getting sick. Lost everything in the living room. And they had to, they ended up giving me something. I don't know. They put an IV of something in my arm, which just totally knocked me out and made me so I couldn't even stay awake long enough to hear what the doctors were saying what the doctor was saying to me, the emergency room doctor. So she fielded all of the questions or whatever, because I remember coming in and out of consciousness, and I would see him talking, and I would hear his voice from a distance, but I had no idea what he was saying before I would just knock right back out from whatever it was that they put in that IV. So he gave her all the instructions or whatever, and then I left the emergency room. Oh, I do remember waking up long enough to tell him, whatever you're saying, we have a flight that we have to make. Don't check me into this hospital because we have to go to Hawaii. And I don't think I told him why at the time, but I told him, I'm not staying in this hospital. We gotta go. So she got us out of there and took me home, and you know, I still wasn't really aware of what was going on in my head, what made me so sick, or any of that. The doctor didn't know, I didn't know. And I do have a peptic ulcer that's been dormant for many, many years. But I think that thing got erupted because I was just over the top anxious and nervous about this wedding. But, so we were to depart, you know, my hometown in the morning. She drove to my hometown in the middle of a blizzard. And I didn't hear from her for hours, and I was very, very, very upset that I didn't hear from her because the weather was really bad and her eyesight was really, really bad. But anyway, she made it there. She made it, and we were to depart Friday morning, which we did on time. But I took this huge boombox that, you know, we would be able to play music in the hotel room, both hotels. And I took this huge boombox, and when we got to, so the flight attendant said, you can't put that in the overhead. And I said, why not? It fits in the overhead. Well, it's too big for the overhead. You have to check that boombox under the plane. I was very upset about that. I didn't want that thing out of my sight, and I didn't want it to get stolen because it wasn't in a box. It was just, you know, the bare boombox itself. And I was like, you know, what if it gets stolen or somebody takes it or whatever? Well, but you can't put it in the overhead. So they checked it in under the plane. We get to Los Angeles, and everybody's luggage was an hour and a half late getting to the carousel so that I could pick that thing up and transfer planes, which guess what meant we missed our flight, our connecting flight to Hawaii. And everybody was upset because everybody on that plane who was going somewhere else got held up by whatever the hell happened between the plane and that stuff getting off the plane and to the carousel. So finally, an hour and a half later, out comes the boombox and everybody else's luggage. So I grabbed it. We had to run. We had to run to a ticket counter, find out what happened to the plane we were supposed to take, which had already left. Find out how we were going to get there. And meanwhile, you know, I had to call the wedding planners and everybody else who was involved, the limo, everything else, that we were going to be late. But things got so screwed up that I couldn't even make all of those calls, and we had to run to another terminal. If anybody's been through the LA, Los Angeles, LAX, huge airport, we had to run to a completely different terminal to catch the last plane out of Los Angeles. By the time we got there, we were harried, we were upset, we were hot, we were annoyed, and we did manage to book the last flight out. But by the time we got to Honolulu, the limo was gone. I did connect with the wedding planners that said there was no way that they could make that happen, make the wedding happen that night. So we would have to wait it out and see what they could arrange the next day. And, We get to Honolulu. Guess what didn't get there with us? All our luggage. And there was at least, between the both of us, probably 7 pieces of luggage that did not arrive with us. You talk about freaked out. We were freaked out. We were the last people standing in that airport in Honolulu, waiting for our luggage. And when everybody was gone, we realized our luggage did not show up, was not going to show up, and it was lost. So we got a taxi to the hotel. We get there looking at each other like, what the hell was this day about? All I had was the boom box and our, personal carry-on. Toothbrush, stuff like that. Deodorant, lotion. That's all we had. We didn't have any clothes. So we spent the night in that very, very nice 5-star hotel. And the next morning, when I woke up, I sat straight up in the bed and said, I can't do this. She's like, you can't do what? I said, I can't get married. I can't go through with this. This whole thing, it seems like an omen. And of course, human beings, when shit happens, we make it mean something. And in this case, I made it mean this was not supposed to happen. All the trail of things that had happened from the 3 days prior to our departure, to what happened during that flight, to what happened to our luggage, to what happened missing our plane, missing the wedding, missing every freaking thing. I made that mean we wasn't supposed to get married. So she freaked out, starts crying. She jumped on the phone and called the wedding planners and was babbling to them, and they said put me on the phone. So they put me on the phone, and I was going, I can't do this, I can't do this. And the 2 guys, they were wonderful, man. The 2 guys that were handling the wedding and everything said, look, listen, just take a deep breath. Everybody has nerves during, gets nervous and is on edge and stuff before a wedding. And we didn't have anybody there. What we had planned to do was a year after that wedding, we were going to have a some kind of ceremony stateside where we invited family and friends and whatnot. I'm not sure why that decision was made, but that's what we had decided to do, was on our 1-year anniversary to have a gathering to celebrate our marriage. So the wedding planners told us to calm down, just go to an ABC store and pick us up some shorts and pick up some shorts and flip-flops or whatever, and just go enjoy the beach. Go try to enjoy each other. And of course, she was like, we also had, we had our swimsuits. We did have our swimsuits with us in our little personal carry-on. So I just said, okay, all right. And of course, she was being ultra dramatic and wanted to have a little ceremony throwing our wedding leis in the ocean. And I was like, God, could you be any more? And what I was thinking in my head is, can you be any more like my mother? I mean, good grief. All this drama. And I said, well, no, we're not going to throw these expensive leis in the ocean. We'll keep them for, I don't know, mementos of being there. And so we did our best to get through that weekend without killing each other. I mean, we were arguing over the silliest of things because it was just a crazy time. It wasn't supposed to go like that, and we missed everything, and I changed my mind, and she was crying, and everything was all goofed up. So we spent that weekend at that very, very nice hotel just trying to tolerate what was going on without our luggage, without our clothes even. But we did go hang out at the beach. And my ex-wife, she had the bangingest body. And everywhere we went in these bathing suits, I mean, people were whipping it. We went to the beach and we were sitting by the ocean, and I remember looking over, there was a band playing over this wall, over this little cement wall. And I swear to God, that whole band almost stopped playing to turn around and watch her. Which made me feel like, you know, Papa proud peacock, you know. They didn't even know who she was. They didn't know who we were. But we were the only, I think, chocolate drops on that beach that weekend. But, you know, they were watching her, and I was watching them watch her, which was kind of fun. I'm just going over highlights, memorable moments during this ordeal, should we say. So Monday, we transferred to the second hotel. We took a cab and went to the second hotel. Meanwhile, I'm also blowing up LAX and all the people you're supposed to contact when your luggage is lost. Trying to understand what happened and how they lost so much luggage and where the hell was it. It had to still be in LA, and they better frickin' find it, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm sure I made some threats and whatever. So we took a cab to the second hotel. And when we got there and we walked in the door, guess what was sitting there? Our luggage. All of it was sitting in the lobby of that hotel. I don't know how they figured out where it was or even where to send it, why it didn't end up at the first hotel, but it ended up at the second one, but it ended up at the second hotel. So it was like, oh, thank God, because I was also freaking out about the fact that my cousin's wedding dress was in that luggage, and it seemed like it was all lost. So we go to check in to that hotel, and they said, your room has been taken by somebody else. And I said, what? How could it be? We're here on time. How could it have been taken by somebody else? Oh, no, you're going to do something about this, because we just came from another hotel to come to this hotel, and you guys need to do something pronto, right away. We're not leaving. I'm not moving. You need to take care of this right now. So the lady at the counter went back to the manager, and she came back out and said, well, we do have a room, but it's on the beach. The second hotel we were going to was not a beachfront room. It was, you know, some other kind of room. And for all your trouble of you losing your luggage and everything else that had happened, we'll book you in that room on the beach. I think it was like 5-6 stories up. I said, deal. Didn't have to change the price or anything. We didn't even have to pay for the upgrade. So we go into that room, and we continue to enjoy the festivities going on. We had done a little bit of traveling around the island prior to that. In fact, we went all the way around it, because I did rent a car. So we went all the way around the island and went to well, shit, now I can't remember what the name of those things were, but we saw some shows, you know. We went to a specific spot and saw a bunch of shows by Hawaiians. And so one of those nights, I can't remember when, it could have been the second night we were there. We were standing on the deck, and there was a show going on below by the pool, which also we could see the ocean from there, from that room, really, really well. And it was at night, and we were sitting, you know, I was standing behind her. She was in front of me, and we were looking down watching this show. You know, guys doing all their number in their Hawaiian outfits, and the women as well. And out of my mouth came, let's do it. And she whipped around real fast and said, let's do what? And I said, let's get married. I don't know. Maybe it was the romanticism of that island and everything that was going on. The fact that our luggage finally showed up and I had calmed down and she had calmed down and blah, blah, blah. But all of a sudden, I got the marriage bug. She didn't even, I think she hugged me for like 5 minutes and then she disappeared into the room to call the wedding planners and said, it's on, make something happen. So I go into the room and I'm like, dang, we could have at least waited till the morning. She said, no. Before you change your mind, I wanted them to know that you changed your mind. These two guys put together a wedding. It couldn't be at a church. It couldn't be at the original church. But they said, okay, well, we got a minister and the location is going to be on the beach. On the beach. This particular stretch that was right in front of this very tall mountain area on Oahu. And so I said, okay, book it. Let's do it. And good thing we didn't throw the leis in the ocean. But they got a limo, a white stretch limo. They got the whole works in record time. I think they made that thing happen in like a day. So we got all ready and the limo took us to the beach. And what was really nice about that, it was the most beautiful thing I've ever done, by the way. Absolutely the most beautiful thing I've ever done. They are really, I should say, gay-friendly on those islands, on that island anyway. They were used to seeing all sorts of things on probably that island and the other ones too. All sorts of kinds of people, so they were really super friendly. And when the limo got to the beach, we got out, the minister was there, the wedding planners were there, the photographer was there, everybody was there, and as this wedding was happening, there were all sorts of people on the beach that just took a seat wherever they were sitting and observed the wedding. They were all smiling, everybody was super friendly. I mean, they knew what was going on, and it was the most incredible ceremony of any kind that I'd ever experienced. And the photographers were on point. They did put together a wedding book for us. Also gave me all the wedding photos on a floppy disk back when those were in computers. And so we had a very lovely wedding. We exchanged rings and got in the limo, and the limo driver was a lesbian. I mean, these wedding planners, they thought of everything, okay? They didn't leave anything out. They didn't want anybody weird, driving that limo. And so we got back in the limo, and the driver drove us around the island, and we were in the back. We had pushed the window up, the smoked window, so she couldn't see what was going on in the back. But she drove us around the island for a little bit, and we were smooching and making out in the back seat. Nothing big, because we were still dressed. And then she drove us back to that hotel. Needless to say, that was a very, before we went to the room, changed clothes, and went up to the top of that hotel, which had a revolving restaurant on the top of that hotel. One of these days, I'm going to get around to revisiting that area on my computer and figuring out what the names of these hotels were. But there was a revolving restaurant up there, and so we went up to eat, and we were smooching and making out and being really lovey-dovey and really close. And the staff, the hotel staff, knew it was our wedding night, and they were very, very accommodating. They were just over the top, um, courteous, and you know, at our beck and call, basically. And so we had a very, very, very nice dinner up there, and then we went back to the room and made love all frickin' night, until the sun came up, and we were exhausted. But so that is my wedding story. I'm not gonna go all into what happened when we got back to my hometown, but that'll be a video for another time. That marriage did not last. It was a very tumultuous year together, and we did end up parting. Didn't have to get a divorce because it wasn't legal anyway. We did get a marriage. They made a marriage certificate up, you know, on paper. Again, it wasn't legal, but it was just our memento of what happened during that stay in Hawaii. So we had the album, and we had the floppy with the pictures on it. We had that wedding certificate. You know, that was a time to remember. I will never ever forget that, as long as I live. Even though in the subsequent years I did lose everything. In fact, I lost 9,500 pounds of my belongings up in Minneapolis. And the wedding photo, the wedding album, and a lot of other stuff was along with my belongings that I lost up there when I lost my career. So all I've got is what's in my head. I have to recreate that entire story in writing for the second part of my book. And it was still something that I'll never regret, even though I was married to the wrong woman. I've been very, very careful, even though I've been engaged quite a few times since then. I've been very careful not to say, okay, let's do it, unless I was sure, absolutely without a shadow of a doubt, sure that I loved her with all of my heart, and she loved me with all of her heart until death do us part, type of thing. That if there looked like there was missing passion, or there was missing if there was too much missing, that engagement period, that test run for what a marriage would be like, if that didn't fly, I was not going to go through and marry somebody just because she wanted to. No, that's not going to happen anymore. I've got to feel it. I've got to feel loved. I've got to feel like I'm the recipient of what I'm putting out, or I'll never get to that point of marriage. You know, with my lifestyle, with who I am as an individual, it doesn't make sense but to be 100% sure, because it can't be over children that we get married. I can't give a woman a child, and I'm beyond the point of being able to bear children anyway. You know, my eggs don't work anymore. I've been through menopause. So I can't even, you know, find a guy who, okay, the word just fell out of my head, but who fertilizes my eggs and put them in a woman to have the child, because I never, ever, ever desired to birth a child, because I've never thought like a woman. I've never really been a woman in my head, so I never had the desire to birth a child. And I saw a live childbirth once. First time and last time. So that's my wedding story. And it was the wedding of the year, for as far as I was concerned. We were very happy, but for a little, not long enough period of time before all the incompatibilities showed up. Even though we were together a year or so before that wedding, there just wasn't enough meat there. There wasn't enough healthy communication and healthy type things going on to justify getting married. And I'll be damned if I ever do that over guilt again. Hell no. No, I'm not going to say yes just because she wants it. I got to want it as much as she does. And things have to be right for me. They just do. There's no other reason to get married unless things are right for the both of us. She's got to want to make it right for me, and I've got to want to make things right for her. That's the way it's going to be. I don't know if that'll ever happen again. I hope it does. Because that was just one of the most special moments of my life. To be married, whether it was legal or not, is really not about the piece of paper. It's really not about the legalities of it for me. You know, it was about telling the world who I love. Being proud to tell the world who I loved. I had to stood on a mountaintop to say that about my wife. And by the same token, my wife has to be willing to stand on a rooftop for me. If not, it's not going to work for me. I am a public figure. I'm not shy. I'm not trying to hide the way I feel about somebody. And if that's how they are, we're not going to be compatible. Not at all. My ego requires it. And if she's not trying to boost my ego, I ain't going to try to boost hers with a wedding. Yeah, that's how I feel. So if I left anything out, sorry about that. It was still, again, the most amazing thing I'd ever been through. Ever. Expression of love. That is the ultimate expression of it to me. And then how you proceed within the marriage is the kicker. You know, if all of a sudden after you get married, everything freaking changes. Oh no. It better get better. It's going to get different. And people have to grow inside of a relationship, inside of a marriage. People are going to grow, people are going to change, but if they're not able to grow and change in each other's direction, then it's probably not going to work. But I look forward to the day that God puts a lady in my life. You know, I've met some ladies, but they weren't anywhere near where I would want them to be. So I'll just actively wait it out until he puts her in my life. One thing's for sure, though, I've made a lot of mistakes when it comes to relationships. I've tended to allow myself to be chosen without choosing her back, without even knowing who she was, who she is, and during that trial period, making compromises that were not in my favor. In fact, I was doing all the compromising when the other person wasn't, and it just, you know, I've had too many relationships like that, and I'm turning over a new leaf. If I'm going to be committed like that, I'm going to be worthy, she's going to be worthy. She's going to be worthy of me, I'm going to be worthy of her, and we'll be able to deal with all of the many changes that happen within a marriage, without running, without doing things to chase each other away. That kind of thing. I've talked to enough married people to know that's how they stay together, is they work it out. No matter what, they work it out. They make concessions for each other. Whatever the other one wants is what you give, not what you want. So that's it for me for now. In a couple of days, I'm going to be at the VA being part of a training of interns for transgender people. I will be kind of like not a spokesperson for transgender people, but I'm going to be able to tell who I am, my story about being a black transgender male in America, and passing that on to these interns that are flying through this area, that are being trained in this area and then sent on to other areas of the country with their knowledge. So this is going to be really exciting. And then my birthday is the following week. I will be 61. So anyway, everybody have a blessed week. It's Sunday morning, and the pollinator is out. Peace.